Hi guys, thanks for stopping by. Today I'm going to show something that I was inspired by Nik the Booksmith, and I will put a link for her video down below. It's a super fun idea for a clear window, and I'm going to show what I do with the window. So I'm going to show how to do it and then show what I do with it. And thanks Nik for the inspiration. Great video. So I'm taking painter's tape. This is my Ranger craft mat, and I'm taking my painter tape like she did and putting it down in a square or a rectangle or whatever you want to do. And then I'm going to put a coat of Mod Podge over it. Here, if I can get this nice, and it doesn't have to be perfect because you can cut it and do whatever you want. So there's my tape, and I'm taking my Mod Podge and I'm putting my first coat down. And like she said, that first coat, you know, it tends to pull away from that mat, because your mat is meant to repel items, you know, nothing sticks to it, so you're trying to make this stick, but it still works. So I'm going to just put that first coat down as good as I can get it with no holes, just like she does it, and then I'm going to let that dry. And then I'll show you the fun things that I'm going to, ephemera bits that I'm going to put in my, on my image. Okay, and while that is finishing up drying the first coat, I have gathered together a bunch of stuff that I'm going to use in my collage. And I have these wonderful postage stamps that have dragonflies on them, and for me they are just too shiny and too white. So in another video I did a tag on a distressed tag that really was fun, and so I thought, well, I'm going to do that with these postage stamps. So I'm going to do the same thing by crumpling it up super tight into a little tiny little ball, and then very carefully undo that stamp. I'm going to kind of distress my postage stamp before I put it in. Let's see how it comes out. And I think I'm going to do it a little bit more. I want it really crunchy. And then I'm going to take it to my ironing board and iron it so it's super nice and flat. Okay, that's dry and it's ready for the next layer. Here's what my postage stamps came out like. That's with wrinkling them up, distressing them, and then using shoe polish over them to make the cracks stand out and make them not so white. I love it. Okay, and I've got all my items assembled, and I used my chocolate or my coffee colored Ranger archival ink, and I stamped onto sewing pattern tissue, a dragonfly, and I used my little Hero Arts butterfly set, and I stamped a little moth on some tissue, and then that spawned an idea. Okay, so tissue paper is going to be really pretty because you'll see through it and you'll see the edges of the paper. But before I put my next layer of Mod Podge, I'm going to take that a step further, and I'm going to use my same ink, my Ranger archival ink, and I thought, what if I inked up a stamp, and I stamp right on that first layer of Mod Podge. Okay, so that will dry and that will show through. I've got to let it dry before I add the Mod Podge over it or it'll smear, but Ranger archival ink is permanent. So I'm also going to take this cool fun block, it's like a texture block, and just put a little bit of, I'm not even putting a lot of ink on there, I'm just going to stamp a little bit of texture on that background because that's going to show. I really love that idea of just putting some stamping. You could stamp words. I have music sheet stuff. I like the idea of stamping on that background. Now I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to add my Mod Podge. But I also had another idea. I'm going to take a fan brush and some Perfect Pearls in Interference Gold, and right here on this layer right here, it'll stick to that Mod Podge. I'm just going to add some gold, and just in a few little spots, because it's going to just show with its iridescence through the design. So I'm going to just fan some of that. Oh, I love it. It's so pretty. Perfect Pearls are very fun to play with in stamping and stuff, and I just thought that would be a pretty texture, or a pretty effect. I'm sorry, not a texture, a pretty effect. And I'm going to stick to, ooh, I put it, oh, how fun is that? Oh my gosh, my ink was still wet. Oh, it picked up the ink and made the little crackles that I did, that texture stamp, it made the crackles gold. Oh, that's so cool. In fact, I'm going to throw some on my little bee up here while it's drying, see if that'll work. Oh, too fun. Okay, this is really, really fun, and there's so many things that you could do with this base idea. And I'm going to keep my designs kind of into the middle, because I have a plan for this piece and how I'm going to use it, and I'll show you that at the end. So I'm kind of going to stay away from my edges and do most of my laying out. Yeah, that's dry. Way to test to see if your ink is still wet is make a fist and lightly roll over it. If it comes down to your hand, it's not ready. If it doesn't, it's ready. So there you go, it's ready. So I'm going to add my Mod Podge, my next layer of Mod Podge. And spread that out nice and evenly. It'll be interesting to see when this is all done what those stamped images end up looking like on the final dried piece. I can't wait to see that. How exciting. This is just way too fun. Sorry, my voice is still a little crackly weird. I'm just getting over being sick with the flu and bronchitis, so, but I have to play. I feel like playing today, so the people in the Facebook group that I'm on shared Nik the Booksmith's video on this, and challenged to see, you know, what you're going to do with it. So I couldn't wait. I had to play, because my ideas just started rolling and going crazy. So okay, so there is my next layer of Mod Podge, and I'm going to start laying out items. And I have things like this. This is a piece of paper. It says August. It's a calendar, and the back was very white, so I distressed it. I even used some metallic rub-ons on the back, so it's very iridescent too, and has a pretty design to it. And I want both sides of this project to show. You can do it just from the front and not worry about what's on the back, but I want both sides to be visually appealing. So I'm kind of planning this out so that things it will be pretty from both sides. So because this is plain and I've got my bee up here, that would be the perfect spot to put this over, because then that bee is going to be on the other side. So that's a good spot. I want things behind things too. So I've got some, this is just some mesh that I'm going to lay out randomly. I've got these beautiful leaves. These are like leaves that are, how do you call it, like skeletons of leaves. I bought them a long time ago when I was card making, and I thought they would be really pretty in here because you could see through. I have one in green and one in cream. So I think I'm going to put those on there just for very cool interest. And then my stamped out dragonfly on the tissue paper. And my stamped out moth, I'm going to flip it over, put it down here. And my postage stamp, let's see, I have some little pieces of fern that I was on a camping trip and I pressed fern and plants, and it was like 20 years ago, and I've saved it in a box, and this is the perfect project for using those little pieces. And those would be pretty to be behind things like this postage stamp. And I like things not straight on. I like them at an angle. And if you're going to put something underneath, something that's already down, you should put a little bit of Mod Podge on the top of it so that it sticks down. Okay. And let's see, I want to use some pieces of lace. And again, put some Mod Podge under and put some lace. And I'm going to use this postage stamp but backwards so that it's underneath, and I really should have distressed that. I'm also going to take some Glimmer Mist. Actually, yeah, I'm going to take some Glimmer Mist and splatter some Glimmer Mist. Take the sprayer out and do some splattering. Okay, I like that. That's pretty. And then I have little pieces of book text. Oops, that was doubled. Okay. And I think I'm going to put this postage stamp over that postage stamp because I don't like it showing so white. Hopefully that won't be too thick. You kind of need to use things that are a bit thin. And let's see, I have a postage stamp up here. And you don't want to move them around a lot because you don't want to disturb that Mod Podge. And I've got some threads here. I'm going to use some pieces of thread. But not too much. I'm going to be careful. I want to be strategic. I want it to be interesting, but kind of have to plan it a little. And I like it. Ooh, swirly. That's kind of cool. Oh, yes. Very cool. I like that. I also have these threads that are glittery and sparkly. They are like fiber threads. I thought they would be very pretty in there. This metallic thread by Sulky. This is very very pretty, and it's very sparkly, and it's very thin, so it'll be perfect. So put little pieces of that down. Ugh, love it. That is gorgeous. Okay, I have a piece of napkin. You know how napkin looks great through Mod Podge, so I'm going to put this bird. Let's see. I think I'm going to put some Mod Podge here. I put my bird here. So napkin, you know how we use napkin with Mod Podge and it turns out really pretty. So I thought napkin would be nice. And then I have these little tiny baby flowers by E-Cake Success. They were back from my scrapbooking days. They're very tiny and fine and flat. I thought they would look fun to place strategically up and upside down and right side up. So they show on both. I like how the glimmer mist is spreading out in the wet Mod Podge. That's kind of cool. So you could be creative. Use your sprays and use your, you know, your sprays and your mists and your stamps, and really just go nuts. Here's a gorgeous piece of fern. This would be really pretty on here. That's my dog Gracie. Oops, that's covering my dragonfly. I don't want that. That's alright. It's still cool. Okay, so I'm just going to continue to add stuff and get it the way I like it, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, this is my collage, and it's got a lot of busy stuff going on, but I love it. That's what I wanted. I added some lace. I added some Tim Holtz washi tape that has butterflies. I used some Ken Oliver Color Burst watercolor and sprinkled it on, and I put it in the spots that are wet, and it's going to bleed out and make a watercolor look. I added some microfine glitter, just sprinkled in some microfine glitter. So it's got a lot of interesting stuff in there. It's going to be really fun to see how it turns out. So I'm going to let that completely dry till it's clear. Then I'm going to add 2 or 3 more layers of Mod Podge over the top, letting each one of those dry. And when that is done and the piece is ready to remove, then I will come back and show you my final plan for what I'm going to make out of this. Okay, for my next step, while that's drying, I put another coat of Mod Podge over my collage. I've taken 2 different types of wallpaper, 2 different designs. These are out of a wallpaper book, so they're really fun and textured and very nice and thick. And I measured about how wide this is because I'm going to cut it in 2 pieces. And so I've made these 2 pieces to fit, where this is going to be in the middle. I'm sure you get where I'm going with this. So I am going to cut out a window space in between these sheets to showcase and be a frame around my collage piece. So I'm going to do that next. I just want to show you that I'm using sheets of wallpaper. So while this dries, I'm going to make my my frames and have it ready to go for when this is ready to peel up. And then I'll come back and show you the peeling up process. I'm so excited. Okay, I've cut out my frame pieces, and I took a alcohol brush tip of a Prismacolor alcohol ink and went into the inside of the frames and along those edges, because I hate those white edges, and trying to get your pieces to line up exactly perfect. You're going to have a little tiny variance, and that way you won't see that variance because it'll be the same color or darker in there. So that's what I did to put my frames together. They're ready to go. So as soon as this dries, I need to put 1 more coat on and let it dry again, and then I'll be back. And even though the wallpaper pieces are thick, they are still flexible, and this is flexible. So I went ahead and made a little piece of cardboard in a little bit smaller size than the frame, and it's going to be, I'm going to glue that in. That's going to be sandwiched in between the two, and that's just going to give it a little extra stability to make it a little stiffer for what I'm going to use this for. So I cut my piece, my little cardboard frame, a little bit thinner so it doesn't go right to the edges. You see, left about 1/4 of an inch in gap, and I'm going to glue it in place so it doesn't move. And then it's going to be one of the layers sandwiched in between the two pieces of wallpaper. And this project is not for the impatient. It takes a long time for the layers of Mod Podge to dry, and especially as you're getting thicker and thicker layers on there, it takes longer to dry. So it's patience, and you're like, come on, hurry up. I'm just dying to see what this is going to look like. It's going to be so pretty. But it takes patience. So if you're a quick results kind of person, this is not the project for you. But if you love this kind of fun and interesting thing, be patient and it's going to pay off. I have a vision for what I want to do with this and what I want it to look like when it's done. And I just know it's going to be really cool and really pretty. So patience is a virtue. Dry, dry, dry. Hurry up. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, here it is, and it's still got some little white spots where it was really thick, like where the lace is, and a little bit right here, but for the most part it's really dry. And so I'm going to go ahead and remove it and see how it turned out, see if it needs anything. So here comes the test, and then feeling if it's thick enough and whether or not it's going to need another coat. I guess that's the true key, is it going to be thick enough? Oh, that's so cool. It looks really neat on the back side. There's the back side. That's wonderful on both sides. I love it. I think I do need to let it dry a little bit more now that I've pulled it up. And as far as thickness, I think it's thick enough. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit more. And then what I'm going to do is, here is my frame ready to go. It's got the piece of cardboard in between. And I'm going to find what I like, you know, like center this and find the spot that I like best that I want to put in this frame. And then I'm going to trim the piece out, put it between the two frames, and then I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and I'm going to do a zigzag stitch around this edge and around the outside edge, and then I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so here are my beautiful ephemera framed tags. Look at how cool this turned out. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I like the stitching. I love that little piece of cardboard inside, made it nice and stiff. I did a zigzag stitch on the inner part to hold the ephemera window in, and then I did a straight stitch on the outside. I'm going to put an eyelet. I'm going to use my eyelet setter and put an eyelet and a ribbon. I'm going to use this for my personal journal as like a page marker, and I just love all the little bits and pieces of things that you see through it. The napkin with the bird, the lace, the postage stamps, the rubber stamping, the washi tape. It's just way too cool. And then you turn it over, and I love this stuff on the back. The parts that I stamped on paper show really well. The parts that I stamped on the first layer of dried Mod Podge came out. They came out fine. You can see them, and they look nice. And in fact, where I went over it with the Perfect Pearls, over that stamp that is marble, the one that looks like this. And then I stamped it and went over it with perfect pearls. That marbling shows up really nice. It looks really pretty. I think next time though, I stamped with brown, and it's very faint. You can see it, it's pretty, but I think next time I would go with stamping using a black ink. So that's just my personal preference. I'm not 100% in love with the watercolor powders on here. It's too bright for me. Some people might really love it. It's pretty, it's gorgeous, it's watercolor, and it blended out and it made a real pretty watercolor effect, but it's very bright, and I wanted more of a subdued look, but it's okay. I put things in here like a feather from one of my finches, and that shows up really nicely. It's really pretty to see that finch feather in there, and then the dried leaves and postage stamps that I distressed. It's just, they're both really, really cool. I love how this project turned out. I absolutely love the vision I had for making a double wallpaper frame around it to make it a really cool tag. So hopefully that will inspire you guys to maybe try that. I appreciate Nik the Booksmith's inspiration, and then the people in my Facebook group that I'm on that showed it to me and challenged everybody to see what they could create doing this project. And I love how it came out. Let me see if we put it on top of white. Maybe you could see through it better. Oh yeah, look. Now you can see through it much better. There you go, with white behind it. Look at all the layers, the strings, the lace, the fibers, the napkin, the spine of a leaf, stamping on paper. Look at all those layers. Oh my gosh, so unique and so pretty. I love it. I love it, love it. Let me flip them. There's the back sides. Look at how pretty and fun. Very fun project. One of the most fun projects I've done in a really long time. I can't wait to do this again and make more of them and use them for different things, make different sizes. The square that I made was about 7 by 7, and it made 2 of these really nice sized tags to go into a journal. It's going to be a great page marker for my journal. So very fun, and had a blast doing it. So thanks for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed this, and I can't wait to see what everybody else makes from trying out this project. I love that we all inspire each other, and art soothes the heart.